troops have been hastily deployed in Kaišiadorys, a small town in central Lithuania. A group of pro-Russian activists are threatening to take over the town hall by force.
Have you noticed that our daily lives are becoming more and more difficult? Don't you see? A peaceful gathering of citizens is being driven out of the square. The mayor is a coward. A coward.
The demonstrators don't hesitate. They attack cars belonging to the town hall employees. All at once, the demonstrators try to force an entry.
Inside. Everyone inside. This way.
These men in khaki uniforms are the last line of defense protecting the town hall. A few rioters have succeeded in getting inside, but they are rapidly overcome.
Fall back. Everyone fall back.
But in fact, this demonstration is a drill. The rioters are actors, and these soldiers are volunteers.
The shield should be pressed against your knee, your arm, and your helmet.
They belong to the Lithuanian Riflemen's Union, a paramilitary organization.
You must always make sure that you have cover. Those who are at the back, you should drive attackers back with your batons.
They are students, businessmen, even civil servants. Their mission is to support the Lithuanian armed forces in case pro-Russian operatives try to destabilize the country.
You mustn't become separated, otherwise you risk a stab wound.
Rolandas is a new recruit. This is the first time that this 54-year-old senior manager has ever used a riot shield.
I thought that it would be easier, but in fact, it's really hard work. We want to be prepared, to be capable of reacting quickly to any foreign act of aggression. Do you fear an invasion? Yes, of course, anything could happen. But if we are well prepared, I think that could reduce the risk.
If the Lithuanians are preparing for the worst, it's because they fear their powerful neighbor. The Russian state is relentlessly building up its military strength. Kaliningrad is a little piece of Russia wedged between the north of Poland and the south of the Baltic states. With its miles of beaches and timber-framed houses which recall its German past, it's far from the traditional image of Russia. For good reason, this area was cut off from the rest of the country after the fall of the Soviet Union. Today, it is a strategic enclave for Moscow, serving as a fortress against NATO.
Kaliningrad is one of the most important regions of Russia's outpost in the west.
This region serves as the headquarters for the Russian fleet in the Baltic Sea. 30,000 soldiers are stationed here. But more importantly, this is where Vladimir Putin keeps his nuclear missiles. The missiles are capable of striking Paris, London, or Berlin within just a few minutes.
The question is, could they stop Sarmat missiles? No, this missile cannot be intercepted.
We gained access to film in this region, which has been almost inaccessible since the war started in Ukraine, a region where journalists are closely monitored.
Can I see your papers? Of course. And your press credentials?
Against a backdrop of war in Ukraine, Kaliningrad now poses the threat of a second front between Russia and the West. This situation is a serious concern for its neighbors, the Baltic states.
The aggression could happen in Ukraine, and we understand the Baltics are next.
The former Soviet republics of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia are members of both NATO and the European Union, having joined in 2004. Today, they are ready to do whatever it takes to defend themselves against Moscow. In Lithuania, ordinary citizens have taken up arms and are training to become soldiers.
The Ukrainians weren't given time to organize, but we have time, so we can start preparing ourselves now.
In Latvia, the government wants to erase its Soviet past. It has ordered that old monuments that glorify the Soviet Union should be torn down. This decision has angered the Russian-speaking minority, who make up almost a third of the population.
Fascism shall not pass.
The government is using recent events in Ukraine as a pretext to wipe out the Russian culture here.
To free itself from Russian influence, Latvia has even restricted the use of the Russian language in public spaces.
I don't understand what is written here, because I am Russian-speaking. But if a Latvian overhears, he will complain, and I could receive a fine.
In the grip of a culture war over collective memory and threatened by a highly militarized territory, we investigate the tensions between Kaliningrad and the Baltic states. A train enters the station in the south of Kena in the southeast of Lithuania. About 15 border guards come out in the freezing cold onto the platform.
In carriage 9, 2 passengers.
This train is under careful surveillance because it originated in Moscow. The war has not stopped the railway line linking continental Russia to Kaliningrad. It leaves from Russia and crosses Belarus before entering Lithuania. 120 Russian passengers are on board, bound for Kaliningrad. The customs officers go into each carriage. They carry out a thorough identity check of each and every passenger.
Thank you.
Since the war in Ukraine, Russian passengers are no longer allowed to get off the train. And yet, after about 10 minutes, to our great surprise, there are a few passengers on the platform.
Have you come from Moscow?
Yes, I've come from Moscow. They have left us out after checking our papers. They checked all of our documents and authorizations. My children are Lithuanian nationals, which is legitimate grounds to get a permit.
Natasha was able to leave the train because she has dual Russian and Lithuanian nationality, and she is not the only one to get off the train. Eugen has also gotten off the train, clearly feeling the effects of the journey and of the past few months spent in Russia.
Have dual nationality, Russian and Israeli. Have you fled Russia? Yes, I was in Russia, and now I am going to Israel. Why? I guess you know why. Because I don't want to be there anymore. Because it's a dictatorship.
How to explain?
I don't know how to explain it. I don't speak English very well. No, I don't want to speak Russian here.
This traveler is no longer in Russia, but he is still afraid to speak freely. He is the last passenger to get off the train. Before the train leaves, one of the border guards puts a small device on the train.
What are you doing?
The officer is not allowed to answer us.
The package has been placed in carriage 4. Carriage 4? Yes.
In fact, he has fitted a GPS beacon. It will confirm that the train hasn't made any unexpected stops within Lithuania to illegally unload any material or any people. Lithuania is concerned that Russian agents could foment unrest within its territory. A half hour later, the train continues on its way. Before reaching Kaliningrad, it makes one last stop at the station at Vilnius, the Lithuanian capital. Once again, passengers are not allowed to disembark. But the Lithuanian authorities have ordered a 10-minute stop to deliver a message to any Russian travelers.
Dear passengers on the Moscow-Kaliningrad train, Ukraine has prepared an exhibition of photographs. You can see them through the window of your carriage. Putin is killing Ukrainian civilians right now. Do you support this?
A dozen or so photos showing the conflict in Ukraine are displayed on the platform. The display is designed to force Russians to see the horror of the war. Despite these upsetting images, very few passengers turn away. 3 hours later, they arrive at Kaliningrad station. Situated beside the Baltic Sea, Kaliningrad is a small territory, 15,000 square kilometers in area, not much more than the area covered by metropolitan New York City. Before falling under Russian control, it was a Prussian enclave. Then, for over 700 years, it was German. Its capital, once known as Königsberg, still bears a few remnants of its past, such as this Gothic cathedral, which is the final resting place of the philosopher Immanuel Kant. In 1945, at the end of the Second World War, the Third Reich was dismantled. The Potsdam Conference agreed that Kaliningrad would be annexed by the Soviet Union. Today, this Russian enclave in the heart of Europe has a population of nearly 1 million people.
So, shall we go?
Elena, a 38-year-old psychologist, takes her 2 children to school every morning.
My daughter, Irina, has an excellent teacher. She has very good teaching methods, and she is also teaching them good moral values.
The new school year is starting with an emphasis on national pride.
Off you go. Have a good day.
A ceremony begins in the playground. The director inspects each college student to ensure that they are dressed properly.
It should be a classic skirt.
Everyone must be smartly dressed.
You are wearing a strange sweater. What does that say about you? You wearing trainers.
The best students are selected to help raise the flag. The others are sent to class. It is a solemn moment of patriotic pride for these young Russians. They now sing the national anthem at the start of every week. This is something which began in the previous school year. Patriotism is instilled from a young age. Elena, their mother, approves.
That doesn't seem strange to me. Quite the opposite. I don't understand why it isn't taught earlier. We live in Russia, so we should all know the anthem. I'm very happy with the school curriculum. The lessons cover terrorism, staying safe, helping each other, love and family. In my opinion, those are very important subjects.
As well as raising the flag, Vladimir Putin has also ordered that schools should teach history and current affairs lessons from a Kremlin-approved curriculum. The Russian president used this major program of school reform as the pretext for a publicity stunt. On the 1st of September 2022, with the war in Ukraine raging, he went to Kaliningrad, bypassing the Baltic countries, which no longer allow Russian planes in their airspace. The boss of the Kremlin delivered the first lesson in the patriotism class himself live on television. It was a calculated move in a strategic territory just a stone's throw away from major European capital cities.
On this first day back at school, I want to congratulate you all.
Vladimir Putin delivered his version of the conflict to this hand-picked group of school children.
In Ukraine today, they have created an anti-Russian enclave which threatens our country. Our men are fighting there to protect the inhabitants of Donbass, but also to protect Russia. And, of course, this fight deserves the support of all of society. It's very important.
In Kaliningrad, propaganda is not only broadcast on television. You can see posters glorifying Russian soldiers in the streets. And on the quays in the city center, Russian naval power is on display for all to see.
I want to go to the museum.
After school, Elena and her two children, Vadik and Irina, decide to visit the Naval Museum, one of the city's big attractions. They don't have an aquarium here, but they do have warships.
I like all of the military boats, but this one is really good. And there is a great view.
This military cruiser still displays communist markings 30 years after the fall of the Soviet Union. And they have a B-413, a 50-year-old conventional attack submarine.
Careful on the stairs.
Right next to it, we find an Akula-class, third-generation nuclear submarine. It is a stealth submarine, 8 stories tall, and the length of 2 football pitches. It can carry strategic nuclear missiles.
Vadik and Irina are finding out what it's like to live on a submarine.
Look, there are tin cans. Is this the kitchen?
This visit doesn't seem to have motivated them to join the Navy.
I couldn't live here. It's really cramped. Why? Mom, it's too big.
In the wardroom, a portrait catches the visitor's eye. Everyone wants their photo taken with Vladimir Putin.
Can you see him in the photo?
The head of the Kremlin is portrayed as the protector of his country in a military style. In just a few years, he has transformed Kaliningrad into a military outpost that threatens all of Europe. The port remains ice-free all year round, and so the enclave serves as headquarters for Russia's Baltic fleet. 130 warships are based here. The Baltic fleet alone is bigger than any other navy in Europe. And more importantly, since 2018, Iskander ballistic missiles are also based here. These missiles can be fitted with nuclear warheads and are pointed directly at Europe, barely 500 kilometers from Berlin. And since the war in Ukraine, Moscow has threatened to move an even more fearsome weapon to Kaliningrad, Sarmat missiles. With a very long range and capable of speeds over 7,000 kilometers per hour, as well as evading defense systems, the Sarmat is the largest nuclear missile ever designed. This information was presented on Russian public television. It is surreal to watch.
The question is, can they stop Sarmat missiles? No, this missile cannot be intercepted.
In this program, journalists imagined what would happen in a Third World War and marveled at the strike force of the new Russian hypersonic missiles.
From Kaliningrad, a Sarmat would reach Berlin within 106 seconds.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. We have to show them this infographic. And guys, look at this picture. Count the seconds. Can you do it? Hello, the missile is already there. Let them think a little. Let them get a stopwatch and count 200 seconds. That's the way to talk to them. That's the only thing they understand.
The Kremlin's aggressive rhetoric has the unfailing support of the governor of Kaliningrad. Antone Alikhanov is thought to be one of Vladimir Putin's protégés. He's 36 years old and has been the leader of this Russian enclave since 2017. We started filming just as Antone Alikhanov was seeking a second term. He was the odds-on favorite for the election. He didn't even think it worth his while to campaign. When Elena goes to vote, her choice comes as no surprise.
We will vote for our governor of the Kaliningrad region.
Do you know if there are any other candidates?
To be honest, I do not know. Today we will elect Alikhanov, just as usual.
Although Elena doesn't know of any opponents to the governor, 6 other candidates did in fact put their names forward. One among them is Maxim Bulanov, leader of the local Communist Party.
So how's it going at the polls?
There are portraits of his heroes in his office. Lenin, who played a leading role in the October Revolution, and his successor Stalin, who was responsible for the deaths of between 15 and 20 million people. But this doesn't diminish the candidate's admiration.
You know, Vladimir Ilyich was the founder of our party. Joseph Vissarionovich was his successor, our generalissimo. Thanks to him, we won the Great Patriotic War, which liberated the European peoples.
Maxim Bulanov represents himself as an opponent to the governor. But for a supposed political adversary, his words sound very similar to the official party line.
We fully support the president's policy. He is our commander-in-chief. What he did was really necessary, and I really hope that we follow it through. In fact, in my opinion, we should be even tougher.
The communist candidate has differentiated himself from the party in power by campaigning on the theme of electoral fraud.
Are we going to see the Electoral Commission?
After several hours of filming with us, Maxim Bulanov finally offered a few words of criticism of the regime. In the last parliamentary elections of 2021, Vladimir Putin's party was accused of massive fraud by its opponents.
You know, there are commissions that are dishonest. I'm not saying that all of them are. But some of them, on instructions from their leaders, have got into a habit of rigging the results and not respecting the will of the people. And for whose benefit? Obviously, this will always favor the ruling party.
But despite this outward show of integrity, the candidate has prepared a staged meeting for the cameras worthy of the old days of Soviet propaganda.
Hello, Oleg Mikhailovich. Perhaps you could say something to the journalists, right? The president of the commission is here. Ah, very well. Can the president do it? Can she give the participation rate and confirm that there is no fraud in this office? Yes, if you want.
So when we ask the head of the office about the election, the answer comes as no surprise.
Did you observe any irregularities in your polling station?
No touch wood, as they say. Everything went well. We followed all instructions. We followed the rules about opening and closing polling stations.
This stunt undermines all of Bulanov's rhetoric. In reality, no opposition is tolerated in Kaliningrad, just as in the rest of Russia.
Thank you, Elena Vasilievna. You have a very effective team.
When dissident parties are authorized by the Kremlin, it is only to give the appearance of political pluralism. And they are closely watched, just like journalists. Our film crew was in the communist candidate's car near to the exit of the polling station when we were stopped by the police.
Our boss is coming in 2 minutes, okay? Are we leaving? No. This isn't the time to make any sudden moves.
The candidate, Maxim Bulanov, is ordered to get out of the car.
Good morning. Can I see your papers? Are you running to be an MP? No. I'm running for governor. We're not interested in you.
Next, our team is questioned by the police.
Excuse me, I need to speak with them. Can I see your ID? Of course. And your press card?
In Russia, journalists risk up to 15 years in jail for spreading false information.
You are not a journalist? No, I'm not really a journalist.
Our team was finally released by the police, but only because they were with the communist candidate. After this incident, Maxim Bulanov refused to continue filming with us. Since the beginning of the conflict in Ukraine, the few independent Russia media outlets have been either closed or forced to flee the country. People can only access officially sanctioned news.
The enemy's losses amounted to 150 Ukrainian soldiers and a dozen military vehicles.
Out in the countryside, just a few kilometers outside Kaliningrad, Ludmila, a 65-year-old retiree, gets all of her news from state television.
the 130th Territorial Defense Brigade, the Kraken Nationalist Regiment in the localities of Zariano, Nikolaevka.
Russia Today, Russia 1, or Russia 24. All these channels were banned in Europe after the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, accused of being propaganda outlets for the Kremlin.
When I am at home, I watch television every day, especially the Ministry of Defense channel. Also watch Soloviev, the government journalist, to be aware of what is going on. The TV is on all day, even when I am in the kitchen.
This retired blue-collar worker never leaves the region of Kaliningrad, and so television is her only window on the world.
She is the president of the European
Commission.
There she is, Ursula.
Look at what she's wearing. Look at what she's wearing. She's wearing
blue and yellow.
The
Ukrainian
colors.
She should be court-martialed. She really deserves that.
Ludmila is angry with the European Union, which she blames for the economic crisis in Russia. She has been struggling to make ends meet for the past few months.
Prices are gradually increasing. They keep going up. By how much? Proportionally. I can't tell you, but if I had to compare. For example, the last time I went to the supermarket, it was crazy. Paid 258 rubles for a packet of washing powder, just for one packet. Before, it was 52 rubles per packet. It's crazy.
258 rubles. That's about 4 euros for a packet of detergent, 5 times more than before the war. On average, the price of food products has increased by 30%. So Ludmila grows her own vegetables to fill up her fridge.
These are the last of the season. That's a walnut tree. I have another one over there. In all, I have 5.
But her real treasure lies at the bottom of the garden. She has 3 tons of coal stored here. This stock of coal will be essential to get her through the winter in Kaliningrad. Coal is an increasingly rare commodity here, and the pensioner fears that she won't be able to afford any more.
Before, coal was 4,000 or 6,000 rubles per ton. But this year, it costs 12,000 rubles per ton.
12,000 rubles, or 200 euros, is about 2/3 of her monthly pension.
You need to add a little coal so that the stove doesn't go out.
Coal has become expensive because it is increasingly scarce in Kaliningrad. It fell under a European embargo last April, along with iron and other building materials. The Russian enclave is particularly affected by these sanctions, which weaken the entire local economy. Especially the tourist trade. Before the war, Kaliningrad was a popular destination for Muscovites. This region is home to the Curonian Spit, a little-known gem of Russia. A strip of sand 100 kilometers long on the shores of the Baltic Sea, classified as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Leona and Katya spend a few days in this seaside resort every year.
Ah, they are right there. Hello, you?
But she was very hesitant about booking her usual trip this year.
I was supposed to visit Kaliningrad in the spring.
But I got scared,
so I canceled the trip. To be honest,
I
was anxious about coming here.
Katya was worried because since the war in Ukraine, Russian planes are no longer allowed to fly in European airspace, which has further isolated Kaliningrad.
Flight routes have been changed. From now on, we must only fly over neutral zones. But the air corridor is very narrow, so sometimes we are escorted by NATO planes.
Ever since the outbreak of war in Ukraine, the beaches have been deserted, as has the hotel where the Muscovite couple usually stays. Nikolai, the director, comes to greet them.
We went swimming.
Did you?
This young entrepreneur has invested nearly €500,000 in this luxury campsite, which opened in 2019.
We have 25 tents like this. You see, there is a large bed with radiators on each side. That way, everyone has their own. And of course, there is every home comfort, like Wi-Fi, for example, and electricity.
Before the invasion of Ukraine, Nikolai's campsite was booked solid. Now, the tents are empty. Tourists are afraid to come to Kaliningrad.
We have lots of customers who call to tell us. We have booked, but given the news, we wonder if we can really travel to you, and if we won't get stuck there. So now, people want to book at the last minute, if there is a long weekend approaching. And the situation is calm, then they buy a ticket to Kaliningrad. They do it because they know that they can get back. They can clearly see that there are no missiles targeting Kaliningrad.
If Russian tourists are not coming to Kaliningrad, at the same time, those from Kaliningrad cannot cross the border to neighboring countries. The Baltic states and Poland closed their borders to Russian tourists last September, which contravenes European policy on free movement. The situation particularly affects young people who are used to traveling to neighboring countries. The Yeltsin, a bar in the center of Kaliningrad named after the first president of the post-Soviet era, attracts a fashionable young crowd. Anastasia, a local tourist guide, is meeting her friends for a drink tonight. Everyone is worried about their future.
When we
see on the news that Poland has passed new measures
against Russia, we know that things will get worse for us
because our borders are closed.
In Great Russia, sanctions might seem far away, but here we really suffer.
Anastasia and her friends grew up in the heart of Europe, so they feel both Russian and European. Like 80% of young people in Kaliningrad, they have never set foot in mainland Russia.
Before, it was normal for us to go to Poland for the weekend. Now, with what is happening, it is impossible.
We can no longer leave the enclave. We can't import certain products, like beer, anymore. Even that is gone. So now we only drink Russian beer. All this is because of the special military operation, the behavior of the Russians, and our president, of course. We all want to live in peace. But hey, we are also outraged by the way that the European Union and Lithuania have behaved.
Ever since the war began, Lithuania has been at the forefront of opposition to Russia. The conflict has revived painful memories of the Soviet occupation. Lithuania was occupied by the USSR from the end of the Second World War and lived under the control of the Kremlin for nearly half a century. So people are especially worried by the threat of a new Russian invasion. In Kaunas, the country's second largest city,
Leo, are you going to hold my hand? Come over here.
Smilta's family attends Mass every Sunday at this Catholic church. The practice of religion was forbidden during their childhood, but today Smilta and her husband Rolandas are fervent practitioners.
Religious faith is a source of strength to me. A person without faith is like a house built in the desert, without foundations. It will not last
They
long.
pray for the end of the war in Ukraine. The conflict has renewed fears of their expansionist Russian neighbor.
You can take 5 candles if you want.
When they were children, Smilta and Rolandas witnessed family members being deported to Siberia. Lithuania was scarred by the deportation of hundreds of thousands of its citizens during the Soviet occupation. The trauma of this still lives on among its people today.
I remember this time. We could not express ourselves freely, otherwise we risked punishment. Today is different. You can speak freely. You can express yourself in your mother tongue. You can pray and come to church without hiding. And so, when we know what is happening in Ukraine, not far from our border, we realize that our situation is fragile and that what we experienced in the past can happen again.
We don't want our children to go through the same thing. That's why we have to be ready.
On weekdays, Smilta works at a university as the director of communication. On the weekends, she puts on her combat fatigues.
Be careful. It is very heavy.
About a year ago, she joined the Lithuanian Riflemen's Union, a paramilitary militia.
Visi vadai renkasi šiandien, jau yra nuo ryto kai kas. Aš dabar apie pietus atvažiuoju ir...
This 43-year-old mother would never have imagined that she would ever be a volunteer fighter.
I am patriotic. I love my country. We know that our neighbors can become predators. We don't expect anyone else to defend us. So I have to do everything that I can so that my children grow up in a completely safe country. It is my duty.
Today, Smilta is traveling to Kasiadoris in the west of the country.
Battalion, attention!
She will take part in an induction ceremony.
In your presence, I swear to be faithful to the state of Lithuania,
100 new recruits take the oath.
to defend it and to protect its territorial integrity.
There are men, women, but also young people aged between 11 and 18. The Lithuanian riflemen have more than 13,000 members, slightly more than the regular army.
Interest in our militia has grown since the start of the war in Ukraine. Our battalion alone has increased by a third. We have over 500 new members since February.
Recruitment is on the rise, and it is not surprising. According to the commander-in-chief, Albertas Dapkus, the enemy is at the gates.
You have to be ready. From the news, on the radio, the television, and in the press, you already know what is happening in Ukraine. The Ukrainians did not have time to organize themselves. They are only now able to train and coordinate their force. We have time, so we must prepare ourselves now.
In Ukraine, the defenders have halted the advance of Russian troops. So, having learned the lessons from this war, the Union of Riflemen have created a specialized training program, combat in an urban environment. The next day, 100 men are mobilized for a large-scale military exercise that will push them to their limits. It's not easy to turn civilians into elite fighters. A few minutes before the exercise begins, Captain Savikas gives some final words of advice.
Whether you are attacking or defending, you're always going to make mistakes. The important thing is to make decisions as quickly as possible. You cannot hesitate. You have to keep moving. You only apply tactical principles after that.
The Lithuanian riflemen are separated into two teams. The first team plays the role of enemy soldiers entrenched in this building.
Everyone go to your sector and occupy it. Martinez, go right.
The second team's mission is to neutralize them.
Let's go around by another angle. Let's get on the road. Come with me.
This is the first time that these men have used weapons of war. They have Swedish machine guns loaded with blanks. But the assault does not go as planned. The group on the front line is already on the ground.
We are dead.
If you're
lying down, it means you're dead.
If you are wounded,
If you are sitting down, you are injured.
If you are wounded, you're sitting like that.
Despite their best efforts, the trainee soldiers seem to be overwhelmed. They don't know which direction to shoot in.
Can you cover us? Don't shoot too much. We're out of ammunition.
They haven't managed to get inside the building yet, and they are already out of ammunition.
Do you need bullets? Yes, I'm out. Do you have any? Yes,
This
but
lack
not
of
many.
preparation will cost them dearly. Because in urban combat, rationing ammunition is one of the keys to victory. After an hour, the enemy is finally neutralized, but at a great cost.
Here, you are all dead. Yes. All who died, kneel down.
If it was a real battlefield, nearly a third of the militiamen would have been killed. Captain Savikas says that becoming a fighter doesn't happen overnight.
I wouldn't send them into battle. They still need training. They just had a small glimpse. But real war is on a completely different scale to this. They still need some time to toughen up.
Lithuania is not the only Baltic country which fears Russian invasion. To the north, another former Soviet republic, Latvia, has come to hate Russia so much that it wants to wipe out all of their shared history. Last June, the Latvian parliament passed a law which ordered the destruction of 69 monuments to the glory of the Red Army. This obelisk was the most emblematic of all. It was located in the heart of the capital city, Riga. On the 25th of August, it finally fell. Its demolition angered some of the population. The Russian-speaking community represents a third of the population of Latvia.
Fascism shall not pass.
The town of Daugavpils is a bastion of the Russian-speaking community. They are trying to oppose the destruction of these Soviet monuments. Alexeis Vasilyevs and his friends come to Victory Square every week to pray in front of this memorial.
Bow your heads.
Dedicated to the Soviet soldiers of the Second World War, this monument is also threatened.
We see only faces. There is no mention of anything Soviet. Nowhere. No stars, no medals, nothing.
Alexeis is deputy mayor. He fears that the cultural heritage of his city will disappear. 80% of the people in Daugavpils are Russian-speaking.
This monument represents the ethnic diversity of our city. Not only from an architectural point of view, but also from a spiritual and historical point of view. If it is pulled down, I will really feel hurt.
This destruction would be painful for his friend Valery, too. His ancestors fought in the ranks of the Red Army to drive the Nazis out of Latvia.
My uncle and my father fought against Nazism. Many of our ancestors were shot by the Nazis. Anyway, it all began with what happened in Ukraine. But what do our ancestors who fought the Nazis have to do with Ukraine? It has nothing to do with it. The government is using the events in Ukraine to eradicate Russian culture.
Daugavpils City Hall has opposed destruction of the monument, but all appeals have been exhausted. In desperation, Alexis turned to the Latvian Constitutional Court and the European Court of Human Rights. The deputy mayor is still hoping for a miracle. But there is not much hope of that. Latvia has embarked on a culture war against the Russian-speaking minority. Speaking Russian is now forbidden in certain places, such as government buildings, banking, and educational establishments. As in this working-class neighborhood about 20 kilometers from Riga. Elena is 54 years old. She lives in this apartment with her daughter Valeria. This former dance teacher is in a situation which is almost unheard of in Europe.
This is my daughter Valeria's passport. She has Latvian nationality. Okay? She is a citizen of Latvia, and this is my passport. Look, it says foreigner, so I am not a citizen. I had 3 children in this country.
Elena is one of 200,000 non-citizens in Latvia. They are Russian speakers who arrived or were born in Latvia during the Soviet occupation in 1940 and were refused Latvian nationality after the fall of the USSR.
I'm being discriminated against. My children have a nationality, but I don't. I feel like a second-class citizen. And have you requested Latvian nationality? No, because to get a Latvian passport, you have to pass an exam in the Latvian language. So if you don't speak Latvian, they don't give it to you.
As a non-citizen, Elena does not have the right to vote or to work in the public sector. Her daughter Valeria obtained Latvian nationality at birth, just like all of those who were born after the fall of the USSR.
I'm a citizen. I am a citizen. I can work in the public sector. I can become a police officer, a doctor, even a firefighter. I can work in the security services and hold a senior post.
The two generations don't always see eye to eye.
I am proud of my Russian origins. Do you feel Latvian? Why do you ask? Oh my God. God forbid. Do you feel Latvian? Don't you have a Russian spirit? I'm sorry, but you're no child of mine. I didn't raise you right. Are you Latvian? Do you want to be a Latvian? Well then, pack your things and get out of here.
Unlike her daughter, Elena refuses to abandon her Russian culture. This heated discussion comes up often, but things always calm down in the end. In the city of Daugavpils, Alexis Vasilyevs is also fully committed to his heritage. The deputy mayor is responsible for education and culture. Today, he is the guest of honor at a concert organized in the village hall. Nearly 400 people have gathered for a folk celebration of Slavic culture.
They sing so well. No, stay seated. It is an honor to be here. It is an honor to be here. Thank you all for coming. Today we are celebrating our shared history. And that is why we are fighting to save it, both citizens, alongside the municipality of Daugavpils. We fight together. I feel like a Russian resident of Latvia. I feel like a Russian resident of Latvia. It was passed down to me by my parents. It's how I was raised, how I grew up. It's a legacy that stays with us to the end of our lives.
But behind his smile and his reassuring words, Alexis is worried.
Yes, we all live together. All together. That is well said. The Slavs must stay together.
He knows that the fight to defend his Russian-speaking culture has already been lost.
Thanks for coming. See you next time. Bye.
His appeals to halt the demolition of the Soviet monument ultimately came to nothing. 2 weeks later, bulldozers rolled into the city center. The monument was torn down in the middle of the night. It was one of the last remnants of the Soviet past. Since the war in Ukraine, Russian speakers in Latvia have been worried about the rise of anti-Russian sentiment. Some residents, like Elena, have withdrawn into their community.
Russians, Russians, Russians. There are Russians everywhere here.
Elena lives in one of the poorest suburbs of Riga. In Latvia, nearly a quarter of the population lives below the poverty line, including a large proportion of the Russian-speaking community.
Good morning. You know, I receive a pension of 400 euros. It's barely enough to pay my bills. Heating costs me 250 euros per month, not including electricity and gas. Goodbye, thanks. Have a good day. We are oppressed. And in addition, they want to eradicate the Russian language. They want to make us illiterate.
The state wants to break with its Soviet past, and so it restricts the use of Russian in public spaces. There are no longer any signs in Cyrillic. You have to pay a contribution to the state to have the right to use the Cyrillic alphabet, so many businesses do without it.
Everything is written in the Latvian language. That's Latvian too. There is no more Cyrillic alphabet. It's over. Nothing is written in Russian anymore. It used to be. It was written in Russian and in Latvian. Here too, it is only written in Latvian. Don't understand what is written, because I speak Russian. Before, everything was written in both Latvian and Russian. But now, if a Latvian hears me, he could complain, and I might receive a fine.
Most Russian speakers do not dare publicly denounce these reforms, even if they consider them to be stigmatizing because they fear reprisals. Elena refuses to remain silent, and so does her daughter Valeria, who has accused her former high school of discrimination. The events took place a year ago at this school. At the time, Valeria was a high school student in 2nd grade.
I was at school, studying with a friend. I was talking to him in Russian. The head teacher came to see me and said, "If you speak Russian one more time, you will be expelled from school." And he said this in Latvian, and here's the text that a classmate sent me. "If you don't like it, just quit school." When you are shunned by the whole class, when you are ignored, this is clearly a radical nationalist mindset. You are rejected just because you are Russian.
When the new school year begins, Latvian will be the only authorized language at school. Officially, this is to help the Russian-speaking minority to integrate. But in rejecting Russian influence, Latvia may be shutting out part of its own population. The European Union is worried by the situation and have urged the Latvian government to resolve the status of non-citizen. The elections in Kaliningrad ended with the communist candidate winning only 5% of the vote. Antone Alikhanov was re-elected with over 80% of the vote. The result confirms the Kremlin's hold on this Russian outpost right in the heart of Europe.